G'day guys, I'm very proud to announce George Doubinski. He's a crazy Russian, but a great guy. And tonight you are going to see him put together a CRM 2011 presentation where he calls out the main functionality, and then he builds a solution on top of CRM and Windows Azure, and has this interesting part where he uses Twitter as a broadcasting mechanism. So with that, I welcome George Doubinski.
Hi, my name is George Doubinski, and myself and Guy Riddle, both of us were Dynamics CRM MVP. We presented earlier this month or last month.
It was only 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. It was like 30th or 1st. We presented a talk about building hybrid apps with CRM Azure. Actually, Twitter wasn't there during the tech ed. After we built the Service Bus application, we thought that it would be a good idea to extend it, and the idea was born how to use Twitter as a broadcast notification mechanism. Anyway, I'll talk about it a bit later on. So anyway, how many of you actually do use or seen Dynamics CRM in action? Okay, not many. So how many of you heard of it or know what it is? Okay, a bit more, one more, two more. Okay, it's good. It's good. It's basically a little brother of applications, I guess, like SharePoint. You see SharePoint here, SharePoint there, and compared to SharePoint, Dynamics CRM is a small blip, but it's getting bigger and bigger every day, and 2011 certainly is a milestone release. And I'll show you some basic functionality of CRM, how to use it, how to connect to it, how to integrate it, say, with external applications, in particular Windows Azure. So we're going to talk about how to leverage cloud technologies to develop applications that utilize both cloud, Windows Azure in this particular instance, and Microsoft Dynamics CRM. We will see the, now that I enabled Twitter, we'll see how to develop solutions that put together CRM 2011, which is new release, Windows Azure, and customer portals, and also those websites, and also social tools like Twitter. How many of you know what hybrid cloud is, or used, or anyway? That's good, at least, because when we asked during tech ed, everyone knew what the hybrid cloud is, and that was actually a bit of a bummer, because we agreed in the beginning of the talk that we didn't have a clue what the strictly speaking definition is of the hybrid cloud. So anyway, as you know, as a public cloud, you can host a website. Azure is a public cloud. You can host web services. Amazon provides public cloud. App Harbor, a very good private cloud. Google, public cloud. Google provides cloud services, you name it. Then there is a private cloud. You take your infrastructure, you put it in a data center, and you get someone to take care of it for you, basically. In fact, during the tech ed, that was really cool, because we did the entire demo of the Microsoft infrastructure, and they gave us like machine with, I don't remember, like 16 gig of RAM and unlimited disk space and what's not. It was really fast machine, virtual machine. Didn't have a clue where it was. It was somewhere in the building. We didn't have any idea where was it. So which was really nice, and that's exactly what private cloud was. All we were given is a virtual machine, an instance of virtual machine was specified like 4 CPUs, I think 16 gig of RAM, 200 gig hard drive. Go knock yourself out. That pretty much was it. In between, there is a hybrid cloud when there is a mix, and that's exactly what we're going to show you, how to take your application on, say, hosted in Azure, and at the same time talk to your and make it talk to your private cloud application that can be hosted by someone else, say in a data center. So we're talking about software as a service. You can use Exchange Online, SharePoint Online. This is typical software as a service, typical application, user productivity. Platform as a service. SharePoint itself is a platform. Dynamics CRM in itself is a platform where you can develop further business applications. And the third one, infrastructure as a service. We looked, for example, my company, we do CRM hosting, and we looked into doing private cloud. Microsoft released cloud management tools for private cloud, so you can effectively spin your own private Windows Azure and give it to your customers if you want to. So what it is Windows Azure? First and foremost, it's a utility, right? You just pay, and you pay for only what you use. It's got Windows Azure, where you can host a website, or you can run worker roles, equivalent of the Windows service. You've got SQL Azure, which is SQL storage. You've got App Fabric, and this is something that we're going to have a good look at. Because App Fabric provides you with middleware to communicate between private and public clouds. The relatively new virtual machine role, so you can have a VM running up there. So effectively you upload VXD file, and off you go. Fire away. Data as a service. Now there is a data market that started to appear. So effectively there's a publishers of data, starting with geographical data, Dun & Bradstreet, some other data points. There's I think bazillions of different data points that you can subscribe to. You pay, you subscribe, you get data feeds. Now, Windows Azure Connect, this is something really interesting. It's relatively new. It's in CTP. And effectively what it gives you is the ability to take an Azure instance, a VM, and bring it into your domain. I'll talk about it a bit later on, but effectively you can have parts of your domain sitting up there. Effectively it's a private VPN tunnel. And it keeps growing. In fact, the reason why I was late, I was trying to make something work, and it wouldn't work because they just upgraded ACS services to version 2, and it just broke some of the things that I was hoping that will continue to work. Anyway, so for those of you who maintain hardware, it's nice to have pedal to the metal, but effectively you have to take care of hardware, operating systems. You need to take care of deployment. You need to know about load balancing, stability, backups, disaster recovery, performance tuning, scalability, and so on, so on, so on. Large headache for everyone involved. In fact, doesn't leave you too much time to actually do something useful. So, Cloud Azure in particular does eliminate a lot of these headaches. Provides scalability, load balancing, performance, so forth. Now, the one thing I want to talk about is CRM. This is the subject of this presentation. So it started as a customer relationship management. So it's got a lot of built-in entities that are geared towards customer relationship management. So you're talking about out of the box, you see contacts, you see accounts, you see activities, you see sales activities, you see marketing, customer service, and so on. Typical customer relationship management. And what happened, Microsoft released it, it was more of a necessity. The market demanded it, and particularly Salesforce provided the services out of the box, so Microsoft didn't have a choice but to match it. But as platform evolved, people realized that it's possible to use CRM for rapid application development. You can manage, it runs on the workflow foundation, so you can manage your business processes very, very effectively. You can provide reporting services, sit on top of CRM and can provide you insight with business intelligence. Office and web-based user applications. It integrates, 2011 integrates with Microsoft Outlook as a first-class citizen, so you can bring in CRM data, you can filter them as you would Outlook data. Now, and suddenly you've got variety of applications. So you have partner relationship management. People started doing distributor management, resellers, employees, government management, donation management, case, fleet, you name it, grant management, very popular topic, asset management within the companies. In fact, we're working with the partners, we're doing risk management, and risk management application is something that doesn't have any customers. It doesn't have contacts or accounts at all. It's just hidden, it doesn't have customer service, because it's all about risk management, it's about managing other things rather than people. And all it sits on the shared infrastructure services. And suddenly the evolution was from CRM to XRM. And when you hear the words XRM, it's basically any relationship management. So suddenly we have a very flexible environment where you can quickly create and prototype the applications. Now, before we dive into demo, just want to show you something. CRM 2011, I'd say sometimes I'd like to say, unlike SharePoint, is well-designed application. It's got a layer of web services, as you can see, and whenever you talk to...
I think I heard Adam screaming from the US when you said that.
Now look, when I program to... I just recently, we were integrating CRM with SharePoint, and we use SharePoint. I'll have a slide which actually talks about the differences. Look, all respect to SharePoint, and we use SharePoint for document management for the customers because CRM is not very good at managing documents. And we had to move large number of documents from CRM to SharePoint. And in CRM, it was like 2 lines of code to get the document out, and 5 lines of code to actually delete any traces of it in CRM. And then it took me probably half a day because I couldn't understand the difference between CP web versus CP site versus CP folder versus CP item. And the folder is an item. Item can be a folder or a file. It just was. And then it turns out those services are not remotable. So if you use something like CPI, the CP web and SharePoint library, it's not remotable. So if you want to insert file remotely, you have to use this \VTI_bin/list as, yeah. Anyway. Now we ended up just moving application to the SharePoint server and reading documents remotely from CRM and plonking it directly into SharePoint. Now look, once you get around it, it's good, but CRM is actually better structured in terms of it's got much more rigid structure. The cornerstone in CRM architecture is that whatever you do, goes through the layer of web services. And in fact, CRM on the surface is nothing more than a web application. It is just a web application. Whatever they do in user interface, as you will see in a browser, right? Whatever they do, they talk using the same web services. So there is no such thing as undocumented or hidden API. Whatever can be done through user interface in the browser, same thing you can do yourself using web services. There's about over 200 methods, or now it's more, I think it's around 250 methods of web services. In addition to that, you can extend CRM with custom workflow assemblies. You can insert your assemblies into workflow foundation pipeline. You can also have .NET assemblies executing code within the main pipeline of CRM application. So before and after, say, it writes records into the database or retrieve records from the database. Anyway, enough of that. What it is for developers, you guys developers here. So CRM 2011, it's .NET 4. It's got flexible web services. In addition to SOAP endpoints, there's a WCF and REST. There's a link provider for CRM, and we'll use it. There's OData service. Now, with OData, the only limitation with OData is that it can be used only inside CRM application itself, that is, say, within the browser, because authentication is not yet integral part of OData. So once it becomes a standard, CRM will move to that. But at the moment, it's impossible to authenticate reliably from outside. Web resources. So whenever you need JavaScript to extend user interface, it can be stored as a web resource inside CRM. For reporting, in addition to SQL, if you're on premises, you install CRM on premises, your reporting services can talk directly to SQL Server using so-called filtered views. If your CRM is online, then you can't talk to SQL database. So instead of that, there is a fetch XML. It's basically XML language, which is, in the end, it's translated to SQL queries, but it's a query language of CRM. In hosted deployments and in CRM Online, you can deploy your own custom code that's executed in a sandbox. So there are some limitations, particularly trust model that comes with it. But in effect, you can deploy your own code into the cloud. Extend event pipeline with Windows Azure. This is something that we're going to do today, and you'll see how easy it is to actually extend it. It adds a new endpoint CRM. And authentication methods, in addition to Active Directory, which always was there now, and Windows Live, which is CRM Online, it supports claims. So, for example, it's now possible to build environment where you authenticate against your CRM on premises using claims, and you have a SharePoint Online that uses same claims, and it's all from user point of view, it's integrated authentication. Now, here's the, I think, yes, the next one is demo, but before we do, I'll spare some pain for Adam and show you the differences between SharePoint and XRM, how to decide when to use one or another. In SharePoint, typically you store structured and semi-structured data, so relationships are quite loose. In XRM, it's always relational data. In SharePoint, social engagement, collaboration, whilst in XRM you tend to go through interactions, activities, though there are some things common in activity, social activity in space in CRM as well. so it's about formalized processes versus informal rules in SharePoint. SharePoint is very good as enterprise search mechanism. With XRM, it's all about data query and filtering. SharePoint works across teams, domains. CRM is quite good within limited space, within the limited domains. Now, having said all that, CRM data, CRM can be plugged into SharePoint using BCS. Is that BCS? What's the new?
BCS, yeah.
BCS. It used to be Business Data BDS, and now it's BCS. I'm always confused. Anyway, so using BCS, you basically can define CRM data. They become first-class citizen inside SharePoint. So, for example, enterprise search, you can search across CRM as well as your document storage. So it becomes a very much integrated environment. Now, but enough of talk. Let's see. First thing first. What we did, we thought a bit about what we're going to show. Now, and we decided that what we want to do is we want to show not CRM, but we want to show some XRM. So what we did, we provisioned, went on to CRM Online and provisioned a new instance of CRM. So we applied for trial, 30 days trial, and provisioned new instance of CRM. And then, hold on, resolution playing up. It's better. What we did is we this is driving me nuts. Then we went to a marketplace. Come on. It's Dynamics Marketplace. Okay. So we went there and we said, it's all nice. We don't want to use standard schema. So what we want to donations. And we picked up this solution. In CRM 2011, there is a concept of solution where you can package some functionality and you can deploy it, and then if you don't like it, you can remove it, which is quite neat considering that you've got SQL Server involved and services involved and so forth. So we applied that. The end result is TechEd 2011 charity.crm5.dynamics.com. CRM5, that's Asia Pacific hosting data center in Singapore. So CRM Online is in Singapore for us. So what we ended up with is standard, almost standard schema, but instead of, I probably should show you the, there is one I haven't customized at all, so I should show you the one, Alexander's IT.crm5, out of the box. Come on. Okay, this is one out of the box. So you've got your dashboards, you've got your activities, calendar, so you've got contacts accounts, you're dealing with sales, leads, opportunities, accounts, marketing lists, invoices, orders, quotes. Then in customer service, you're dealing with service calendar, cases, services, products, contracts, and so forth. Very much typical CRM stuff. Now, once we applied solution, the donation solution, suddenly we still have activities, but suddenly we have prospects. We no longer have leads. We have prospects. We've got members, and we've got constituents, or people who donate. We also we can manage now donations. So we have programs. We've got pledges. We have donations. So instead of managing sales, we're now managing basically donations. So then what we decided to do, we said, okay, hold on. What we're going to run? So we decided that as geeks, we don't eat normal food. So we set up a charity called Feed a Geek. And basically, we're accepting donations that goes towards improving nutrition for geeks, like no more pizza. So we create and say we want to raise, I don't know, $20,000. And we'll start it on 21st. Save and close. Okay, so we set up a program. Now, what we want for the program, we want a public website, okay, where we want to bring people. And to start with, we want a website. Yeah, okay, reload. What we did, we created a simple MVC3 website. And we decided that we're going to host it in a Windows Azure, so we created an Azure application, and we created an MVC3 web role. Then what we did, I'm not going to torture you, walk through all the pain. What we did, we said we want to start with, we want to collect just a name and email of people. Just register your interest. And we want to take this information from the website and record as a prospect in CRM. Very simple. Okay, so what we did, we defined a simple model in our MVC application. This is something that MVC3 does rather nicely. Now, I have first to admit, before that, I never wrote a line in MVC3. Didn't know it before that, so I'll put it together. So don't ask any questions about MVC. I don't know it. I really don't. So anyway, but we put together a donor model. So we send first name, last name, email. Done. And then effectively, what we want is we put a bit of JavaScript, and we did a form. And on the form, we said a label and a text box for first name, label and a text box for last name, and for email. Okay? And now let's see. Then what we need to do, we need to, once people enter it, we need to record it in CRM. That's where the interesting stuff starts. Okay. We're using sorry, that's a dispatcher role. What I'm looking at. Yeah. So we're using CRM, CRM library, which defines CRM data types, effectively. And we're using an XRM extension, which is a wrapper. Out of the box, it provides you with services like Link, and it simplifies, for example, connection to CRM. CRM can use claim authentication, and it uses discovery service. For example, I have access to a number of organizations in CRM online. I can connect to Discovery Service and enumerate all the organizations I have access to, then select one and connect to it, right? This is really painful. It's a boilerplate code, but it is painful to watch. So instead of that, this XRM wrapper makes it extremely easy. So I'm saying I define a connection inside my config file. Here's my connection. It's got URL, it's got username, device ID, credentials for live ID, basically. And all I do is saying new CRM connection. On top of CRM connection, I need to create what's called organizational services, which provides a metadata and CRM services to my application. So I've got so-called CRM context or XRM context. So if our model state is valid, so if data submitted valid, then what I do, I create a new CRM entity called lead. And you see here I'm using string. What I'm using here, CRM can be used as a can use late binding. The development model for CRM can use late binding as well as early binding. With early binding, you can basically run a utility, point it to your database, and say go. It will take a few minutes. It will enumerate all the entities, all the attributes, and will create a full-blown up model for you. So you should be able to say something like lead. I don't have it. Lead L equal new lead. You'll be able to say something like that. And you would have donation. You would say donation equal new donation. I'm simplifying a bit, but you get the idea. Here I'm using late binding. I know that my entity called lead, so I'm referring to it by name. And in spirit of SharePoint development, I'm using very loose property indexer. So I'm saying first name, I just know these attributes, right? So I've done this before. Last name, email address, and I need subject. This is mandatory field. That's all I fill in. Create lead, save changes, and return thank you view. Okay, let's see how it works. Remember, it's a Windows Azure. I'm running locally. I'm testing, so it runs all the Azure services locally. Okay, now let's see what comes out. Okay, so it's a very simple, as you can see, those of you who's done MVC recognize the styling. We haven't done anything about it. So all we're collecting is first name, last name. Let me register myself. I'm saying I'm interested in donating to you guys. Okay. And let's put a breakpoint here. Okay. Got a breakpoint. Create. It's fine. Create lead. Let's flick, force them back. Until you actually hit the actual service, it, as you can see, it falls through. It doesn't authenticate you again. So the first, now create lead was the first real call where it needed to authenticate. Is that a question or stretching?
Oh, sorry, no, stretching.
Fine. So save changes and return view thanks. So our web page should say thank you. No. Yeah. Okay. So let's go and see. I'm not interested in this one. Prospects. My open prospects is basically I created. Since I'm creating through the web application, I probably authenticated as someone else. Here I am. Okay, and I put my email. Beautiful. Okay, so now what I can do, I can deploy these to Windows Azure. That I will do in shortly. The reason I don't want to deploy now is I spent this afternoon deploying here and there, this and that. Now, the one thing, if I have to complain about Azure, it's deployment services. They're painfully slow, especially when you need it. Compared to that, how many of you tried or seen or read about App Harbor? Okay, two people. Okay, now App Harbor, their tagline is that Azure done right. And as far as deployment is concerned, it is Azure done right. In App Harbor, you deploy slightly differently. You don't deploy binaries. You set up hooks from either Git or Mercury repository. And as you commit your code, their App Harbor kicks in, pulls your code, compiles, runs the tests, if any, and deploys. Okay? And it takes about like 30 seconds. So on small application. In Azure, if you deploy in 50 megabytes or you deploy in 3-liner, it doesn't matter. It's going to take like 15 minutes. So I'm not going to deploy right now. And another reason is what you've seen is I don't know, but it's not very happy about connecting to a service bus. Anyway, so that's how you connect to CRM and do some CRM mumbo jumbo, so to speak. Quite easy. Obviously, there's more to it than just creating the lead, but this is a start. This is a sample of late binding programming model for CRM, and I'll show you later a bit of code, what the code looks like with the late binding and link and so forth. Now, let's go back to our presentation. Now, Azure Connect, again, I didn't manage to get it up and running in time for TechEd, and I didn't manage to get it up and running now. Sorry. I do have it running. I didn't manage to make it sort of smooth enough for the demo, the whole process. It's a bit involved process, but the idea is that you can take a website in Azure. I'm sorry, not a website, a VM in Azure, and make it part of your domain. So effectively, it will establish a private tunnel between instance running in Azure and your domain. Interestingly enough, just one of my friends, he asked that one of his customers said they've got CRM on premises and they want to run a portal outside, but they don't want to configure claim authentication. Just don't want to. They don't want to run a DFS. They don't want to go through the pain. It is tedious. It's not so much painful as it is tedious to configure. Anyway, so So instead of that, one of the suggestions was that why don't you run your portal that talks to CRM, on-premises CRM, why don't you run it in Azure, which uses Azure Connect, and it's effectively part of your domain. And clients say, yeah, okay, let's do that. Still, it somewhat exposes their endpoints, and there is a better way for them to do it, but this is one of the options. It's definitely a mix between private and public cloud. Now, the much more interesting option is CRM, how CRM can talk to Service Bus. Effectively, what you can do is you can define a Service Bus endpoint in Windows Azure. And the way you do it is you go to your Windows Azure instance, you go to your Service Bus, and you say new. That's what I did, like feed a gig 2. Checking availability, available. I'm in Asia. I want to allow up to 5 connections. Create namespace. It will take its time to provision, but I prepared one earlier. So what effectively you create? You create an endpoint, a secure endpoint. This endpoint has, let's probably create now version 2, which I don't want. Yes, it created a CSV version 2. Anyway, we'll use this one. So it's got a unique name, Service Gateway. It's got management endpoints, and it's got management keys, security keys. These security keys effectively allow to do 2 things. Let's go back to the slide. And once you define the endpoint here, that's what we did. CRM has an ability to create a plugin. A plugin is a piece of code that runs within the execution pipeline. So it can be plugin when record gets updated or created. Your code will be executed. So it has ability to create a plugin that will securely submit messages to this endpoint. Well, big deal. This CRM server can be on-premises, can be CRM online, can be partner-hosted. Doesn't really matter. Now, what's interesting is that you can start a listener on that endpoint, a secure listener, and listen on all the messages posted to this endpoint. Now, the brilliant part of it is that your listener doesn't need an inbound connection. It can sit behind the firewall. It can sit in the cloud. All it needs is HTTPS out. And I think I know why it's failing. That's your proxy server. Thank you very much. I just realized. I bet it's your proxy server.
Not doing authentication.
No, it's not about authentication. It just sits in between and just... anyway. Because the moment I deployed to Azure, it all worked. Here, it doesn't work. So that means that... so basically what I'm saying is I run the code locally, and it doesn't work. And I bet it's because the proxy server does some fancy things that it shouldn't be doing. But I deploy this code elsewhere, and it all works fine. So anyway, I'll walk through the code, and I'll show you the end result. But this is quite interesting thing. So effectively, you can do listening, secure listening to your CRM messages, effectively to your CRM pipeline from anywhere. And it can be done. There are 4 varieties of listeners that you can deploy. 4 models, 4 deployment models. The one is queue. So effectively, you don't have to have a listener up and running. So your message will go to the queue at the service bus endpoint, and it will sit there in the queue. And it will sit there, and it will wait, and wait a bit longer, and a bit longer, and then it will time out eventually. It dropped, but it gives you a chance to run listener and pick up a Slack. Then there is a one-way communication. You post the message, your listener get notification. There's a two-way street. So listener can actually submit a reply, and there is a restful way to communicate as well. So your listener will listen on the restful endpoints. So there's a variety of deployment methods. Now, the way the configuration works is, you know what? Where's my? I'll just keep talking. I'll connect through my mobile phone, and I guarantee you it will all work. Where's my bag? Yeah, there's a brand new backpack. Yes. Effectively, what I want to do is to configure Windows. Configure CRM, so it will submit messages to an endpoint, and then I will run a listener here locally, and it will receive any messages from CRM Online. And so I'll just quickly run tethering. Wireless networks, tethering, USB tethering. Cool. Let me do that. So I'll disconnect that. Give it a bit to run. Skype is online, the rest is not. Come on. Anyone else on Vodafone? That's shocking. Anyway, whilst it's doing that, I'll just walk through what's involved in actually running the endpoint. First of all, how CRM endpoint needs to be configured. No, I just... Come on. You have a stick?
No. I have a phone.
Can I bypass your your proxy?
No.
Yeah.
I got a internet connection. If you want to come again.
Sorry? Ah, is that you?
Yeah. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Cool. Care to hold on. Connecting. Ah, okay. So it's Okay. Cool. Don't need anything? That's it?
You need a password. I don't know why I didn't ask for it.
Oh. No, I think my
Do some- your-
no, mine started to work. It's okay. No, mine started to work. Okay. Yeah. Okay, it's on. Now, let's see if that works. Okay, what I'm doing here is, first thing first, I'm connected to my CRM Online instance in what's called plugin registration tool. It's basically your code needs to be registered. Now, the brilliant part of this one is that there is no code to register. I didn't write any code. What I do, I create a one-way listener, feed a gig, path is remote service, so it's basically a part of URL will be remote service. And then it's already configured, so I'm just verifying authentication. So configuration involves copying those private keys. Remember, that's hidden keys in Azure. Copying them here and let the registration tool run it. That's assuming that we have connection from here. Ah, okay. Come on. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it's actually verified. It verified that my Service Bus endpoint now can accept messages from Azure. Okay? It's fine. Now, the next thing I do, I register an endpoint for a specific message. A specific message, I'm saying it's a lead creation. So whenever lead or prospect is created, I want to know about it. So I'm just saying, yeah, whenever the message is created, the entity is lead, and just one-way listener, security context, and that's it. Just what it does effectively, it takes the execution context, which contains lots of information about what's going on, what the record is, what the operation is, and so forth, and it remotes it through the Service Bus endpoints. So,
Sorry, how do you know the message type create?
when I register a new one, there's about 250 messages.
Okay.
So when I create a new one, say I register a new step, I can do a retrieve.
Okay, cool. So they're predefined.
Yeah. They are predefined. Actually, when I say messages, they're actually SOAP messages that you can send outside of this environment. So whenever you do, for example, you display a list of records in CRM, like a list of prospects, there will be a message called retrieve multiple. So you can intercept and fiddle with the retrieve results. It's actually quite cool. What people done is very interesting. Someone complained there is no counter of the record. There is no count. When you get more than one page of the result, there is no count. It gives you like 1 to 50, 50 to 100, which is annoying. There was no counter. One of the guys wrote a plugin that basically intercepts retrieve multiple, gets the full counter of the records, and inserts a fake first record into the list, right, with the counter. So you just fake the result. It's absolutely fake record, which just contains total number of records, blah. Worked. So the tricky part was to detect where the retrieve multiple came from. We only wanted to do it in the browser. If request came from the browser, then we wanted to insert this fake record. There are some tricks of trade, so to speak. Yeah, there are some methods like you can use hidden attributes to indicate where your message comes from. Anyway, so we've got this create of lead, and let's see if I can. This is working role. I'm running it locally, so let's see if I can open this host. Effectively, this code that you see, it's a boilerplate code. It's about 20 lines, absolutely standard code. It comes in with SDK, Microsoft Dynamics CRM SDK, boilerplate. You do it once and you forget about it. It runs the website. I have a website role and the web worker role. Now this one. Yeah, that's the website coming up. I wonder if I can blame Dan for misfortunes. Maybe not. Ah, I can.
Yeah.
That's his firewall. So now what I can do is I registered remote service what I want to do, I actually want to stop that, and I want to uncomment print because the rest is just jumping too far ahead. I'll know what I'll do. Instead of this one, I'll load a different plugin listener. 50 gig, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't want it. Okay. The only thing it does, it listens. On the endpoint, it's got secret, and I'm just waiting for it to connect. So it's the same listener. The security key, you typically put it in config. So here's your secret. You copy it from Azure here, so this one can listen. Here you go, okay? Now, let's go to our prospects and create a new one. Remember, this is CRM Online. I'm running console code inside virtual machine on my box connected through the phone, which makes everything a bit slow. But that's only because using Vodafone. Down. Now, one thing I have to say that Microsoft CRM, you've seen the pretty UI, right? It's very bandwidth hungry. It does want a lot of the bandwidth. Does want a lot.
Just want to ask you a question while we're waiting. In terms of, you've shown the Microsoft synchronization framework.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, yeah.
Can the same results be achieved using that too?
One is not a substitute for another. What we're actually working on now, I just had a conversation this afternoon with the guys. What they want to do is to use the synchronization services, but to trigger synchronization, we're not gonna do it user. We're not gonna do it. We're not gonna run it by user, but we're gonna trigger it through the Service Bus endpoints. So Service Bus endpoints, you'll see in a second what data comes through. So test. It would want. It still loads loading script. So company name. Come on. Come on. Can I use your laptop just to submit the record? That would be faster. Yeah, it's very, very busy. Now, recommended bandwidth, I think 300K per client. Now, having said that, there is a lightweight mobile client, so version of UI, trimmed down version of UI. So I think first time without caching, it pumps something like 2 megs down the line. It's a lot of JavaScript, lots of JavaScript.
2 meg.
Do you think SharePoint pumps less than that? You know, ribbons don't come for free, so pretty UI. So do you have it? Yeah, okay. So you just have to trust me that I'm logging into the same.
It's IE is loading, just wait.
Now I'm facing slow machine. IE is loading. Come on. Ah. Why it takes? Why does it take forever?
Just turned it on. Power off the solid state.
Okay. 9 MSN.
Default, I don't use IE.
Ah, you are excused. I thought nobody uses 9 MSN. TechCat 2011 charity CRM5 Dynamics.com. It's still not coming up. I'm just going to submit it here. I'll ignore this one. So we're interested in seeing that. Oh, here you go. Where does this come from? Hold on, it's user,
Could it be your partner doing an
create, lead. Sorry?
Your partner may be doing a presentation somewhere else tonight?
I wouldn't be surprised. Full name, Doubinski. No, that's the one I created earlier. Beat me? Why it's not a queued service. Now beat me. It's the one I created earlier. Why it's stuck on the endpoint is beyond. Because typically with the one-way service, if there is no listener, the message gets dropped. Oh no, sorry.
You said retrieve, remember?
No. If there is no listener, I think it will keep it like for a couple minutes. Oh, here you go. I think it still will be faster here. I think it will sit. There's a timeout, like a couple minutes, and it goes like with ever increasing. So it waits like a second, then 2 seconds, then 4 seconds, then 8 seconds. So it's like goes by, not quite that logarithmic scale. It goes and it waits and then it times out. So something like that. But why this one is, honestly, have no idea. It's not supposed. The messages on the listener's message is supposed to be dropped if there is no listener. So yours is not much faster. I think I've got it already. So save and close. Okay. Now we just sit here, wait, and 1, 2, 5. It will come through. The previous came through, so this one should come through as well. But
Just read IDs that it uses GUIDs.
everywhere. In CRM, inside out, it's now to make performance better. There are some tricks of trade. They use a special CRM team, they use a special generator of GUIDs where they actually aligned on in SQL Server, they will be on the same leaf in the index, on the index pages. So they're like consecutive, not quite, but very, very close. So they use some tricks of trade. They, strictly speaking, they're not full GUIDs, but they random enough, but they consecutive. Anyway, whilst it's waiting here, let's see what the code looks like. So effectively, with the code, what's the full screen view? Full screen. Okay, so we're setting up all the different secrets, create service URI, set the credentials with the is your secret, one of those keys that we copied, set up some bindings, and just set up a service host, and basically I set up a remote service, which is iService Endpoint plugin, which sort of CRM aware listener. And what it gets is what's called remote execution context. And remote execution context, as you can see, this is a dump, a full dump. So it's got user ID, organization, message name create. Remember we did create on a lead, so message name is create, lead, here's the entity lead, business unit, correlation ID to prevent re-entrancy, so forth. Here's the attribute dump. Here's the full name, address, type code, potential donor from the website, so forth, so forth. The other one didn't come through yet, if it ever comes with Vodafone. It's still pumping. Vodafone is still pumping full on. So you can see it. It's like megabytes. We'll wait for it to come through. But effectively, we just print the context, and this is just a dump. Here's your dump. All the different properties. When, who, what the message is, what the property side basically sends the property bags with the different attributes. That's just for create. Obviously, there could be other messages, like assign. If you take a task and assign from one person to another, the message will be assigned, and so forth. So there's plenty of messages to go around. Whilst it's waiting, let's go back to our presentation. And what I wanted to show is a Dynamics Pinpoint, which is a marketplace. It just started with CRM 2011, so it's been introduced, it's what, about 8 months ago. So it's not fully developed yet, but it's getting there. So effectively with CRM 2011 deployment model, you can go there, you can take the schema, you can take the solution, you can deploy it, you can try it. If you don't like it, you can uninstall. If you like it, you go, you buy, so forth. Say we showed the donation management. The other one that is, let me see how we're going there, and I want to switch back to faster connection. No, it still didn't receive it. It will eventually come through. It's okay. Oh, I think I know what happened. Anyway, let me switch back to the faster connection so I can show you a few things with the dynamic marketplace. Okay. And I did search in donations. What you can do is also you can find portals. And this one in particular, customer portal for Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So effectively, just to show you the capabilities what CRM has, this is a free solution. The paid one is this one, ADX Studio Portals. That's the same company. They just have a trimmed down version. So effectively what it does, they started, this company is a CMS company. They started a CMS company, so content management system. They had .NET. They still have .NET management, .NET CMS. So what they've done, they used CRM as a CMS. So effectively, the whole website, the content of the website, is stored inside CRM itself as additional entities. Here's the power of XRM for you. In addition to that, things like customer-facing entities like cases, for example, customers can raise support requests themselves. They're also taken from CRM. So site reads CRM information to display itself and also reads customer-related data. So I can show you online version. Here you go. I think I've got yeah. That's the guy. That's the second MVP who was doing presentation. Here we go. Let's see. That's the organization. And this is the portal. And this is the live ID. Yeah. I'll sign out. Here's the portal, Controls of Customer Portal. You've probably seen it before. Okay, so it's got some event calendar. These events are read from CRM. Schedule a service. It wants me to sign in. It wants me to sign in here as well. So let me go back and show you. One of the reasons I want to show you this CRM is that this instance of CRM has about 13 or 14 solutions installed. Remember those solutions I was talking about? So it's got them all. It's got Vibe, which is social network activity tracing tool. Here you go, content management. So it has the web pages, files, link sets. It's got websites, so you can have multiple websites stored inside CRM. So it's kind of self-feeding instance, if you will. So it's got customer and partner portal. And let's say I would use the same instance to log in. Okay, maybe I'm not defined. I have no idea. Oh no, I just mistyped the password probably. So now I'm logging on into customer portal. Now, what you see here, these edit buttons, right? Because I have permissions as a Terry, I've got permissions, I can edit the website. So it's like see a full blown up CMS, right? Or I can just close that and say, give me a service. Just go away. Schedule a new service. No services, okay, give me the case. How are we going with time? Here's the number of cases already raised. These are cases inside CRM. So not only the content of the website itself served from inside CRM, things like list of cases also served from inside CRM. What I wanted to show you is a bit of a code. It actually comes, the code for this portal is publicly available. So it's a good good code to look at, to study. Okay. What I wanted, remember this, so if I run that, it will run just fine. It will run a local version of the same portal or similar portal, right? Same code. What I wanted is, how about if I run portal, but I use Windows integrated authentication. So I wanted to change portal to integrated authentication, okay? And in addition to that, I said, hey, what it gives me if I use Azure Connect, now I can publish portal publicly, but it will use in Azure, but it will use, because it will be part of my domain, it will use integrated authentication. It will talk to, say, to my CRM on premises. Okay, so that's how I would use it, say, for my partners or for my users to log on from outside. So here is a login, and this login, it does use Active Directory, but it uses form-based authentication. So I said, yeah, that's not good, right? So what I did is, I'll just want to show you the code involved. I changed the mode, sorry, we just need to, authentication mode Windows. So first we do some configuration changes. Then the other thing we need to do is to go to IIS, go to the website, customer portal, and say I don't want any anonymous, and I want Windows. Okay, so now if I run my portal, oh, it no longer prompts me to log on, so it knows who I am. Now there are a couple other changes I really kind of don't want to do it now. I'd rather so it's not going to show me the cases, but this is the code changes that I did. Before it was returning portal user as a contact, and here early binding in action, right? So what I do here is I'm getting username, which is Contoso administrator. Then I'm looking for XRM context, system user set, and here goes link, where system user domain name equal username, and give me a single user. And it finds the user. And then before I do this one, I really need to go and 2011 cont also connect the record, because what's going to happen is it tries to find a contact record from contact set, a contact record where linked system user is the same as the current one that I found. So where this property, this is ID, equal system user ID. It won't find. It's probably null. Yep. And the reason why it won't find, because it's not linked to the user. So what I want to do is to go quickly to workplace contacts. Come on. This is a bit faster. This is my local machine in action. Come on. Adam. And I want to link Adam to myself, and I'm administrator. Then it will find me. Where am I? Here you go. Administrator. Save it. Go back to code. And let's try that again. Let's try that. Need to restart it. One of the things that Portal Framework does, it does very extensive caching. CRM is not particularly speed demon because it does a lot of business logic. So it does extensive caching. As a result, you either have to write code to manipulate the cache or just restart your application. One of the two. Now, what we should have now is, so now it's got contact record, so, and it's gonna bump, but for another reason. Yeah, the code is here. It's not quite. It's not out of the box code. It's been modified. And it doesn't like this particular instance, so it needs to be fixed. But at least it authenticates quite nicely. So just not gonna spend time here trying to work out what's going on. So let's move on. So these are the sites that run Portal Framework. CRMDynamics.com, the site itself, the Dynamics site, it runs on this code that you just saw, a slight variation. The IDX Studio portal, it uses the full-blown up one. I'll explain in a second difference. You've got XRM Virtual, it's a user group, SkiBanf, Tech Days Canada. You just saw this portal. Now, where it's all going is, you've seen Live ID, you've seen AD authentication. Now currently there is work in progress. I didn't pick up this working code yet, but we'll do shortly. To get ACS2 going, which means that you will be able to use not only Live ID, not only Active Directory, but any ACS compliant provider. You want Google ID? Be my guest. You want Facebook, you've got Twitter, you name it. So you will be able to create a portal. Out of the box, users will be able to use any of those ID. OpenID, Twitter, Facebook, whatever is ACS2 compliant is fine. Okay, so it all will be through claim authentication. So what's required is claim authentication. Now, the last piece of code that I wanted to show you. I'm going to walk through the code because I need to connect through my phone, and as you've seen, it's a bit painful. So I'll walk through the code and I'll show you it in action. Now, remember the endpoints. You've got the endpoint in Azure. CRM submits the message to this endpoint, right? Then you have a listener. So what we've done, I said, oh, hold on. It's nice to have a listener, And we can have multiple listeners. And I even started writing the toaster application. I even had somewhere for CRM Toast. Yeah, that was WPF application, which would sit there in a tray, listens. When message comes in, it just pops a toaster. Then I said, look, the last thing, I'm not WPF guy, right? So it's painful, and I don't understand what I'm doing. So what I wanted is a broadcast. Hold on. People like Twitter are already doing that. All we want is to be secure, right? Turns out, you can do it. What we did is, effectively, remember the service bus, CRM sends a message to a service bus. Then we have an application, a worker role in Azure. This worker role, the one that listens on this endpoint, receives a message. Guess what it does then? It uses a predefined Twitter account to send direct messages to subscribers. How you make it secure? Very, very easy. Here I'm logged on with CRM Shout, and it's a private account. So you can't follow this Twitter account. You can't even find it. You do a search on that, it will come back with nothing. So if you go directly, right, you'll be able, with your Twitter account, submit a request to subscribe. And then I will be able to go here and say, yeah, you know what, I approve. Okay? So effectively, it's a private account. And remember, in Twitter, you can only send direct messages to your subscribers. So this account can send direct messages to only to the people who subscribe, who follow this account. Now, because it's a private account, you can't just follow this. It needs to be approved. So it's kind of, it's not 100% secure, right? I wouldn't rely to pass credit card information or anything like that, right? But it's protection. It's better than by obscurity. You can't effectively subscribe. So then what I did, registered as developer, and for Twitter, received a couple consumer keys, consumer secrets, and access tokens. There are a few wrappers, API wrappers around Twitter API. So what we're doing here, I'll just walk through the code. Whilst I'm walking through the code, what I'll do, I'll explain what I'm doing in Azure. In Azure, we have a feed a gig. That's our service bus point, right? I can nuke this one. I don't need it, right? So I've got feed a gig, which is endpoint in Azure. Then I have, it says staging, but it's actually production, and it's stopped. It's already deployed website, MVC service, MVC3 website, and it's got the worker role running and listening on the service bus endpoint. So I'll just start that. That's what I hate most about Azure. Regardless how big your application is, the starting, stopping, swapping, uploading does take time. Do not do it in a rush. Don't leave like 5 minutes to do it. If you have production to deploy, give yourself plenty of time. That's just nature of the beast. It takes its time. Just scale of things. It's nothing you can do about it. Okay, whilst it's starting, I want to walk through the code. So what it does is, effectively I'm saying, I'm listening and create message. So context, if message is create, and entity is lead, or donation. If you paid attention, there's another one which I disabled, but at the moment I'll enable it. I want to know when donations are received. Okay? Good idea, right? It's very similar to a lead, except it listens on a different entity. Create message on donation entity. What I do, I build a message, say, hey, new lead or new money, and I build a URL which contains lead ID. I have to say that it may look intimidating, but CRM has this nice feature. It's called URL addressable forms. Any single form that you see when you open the new lead, existing lead, contact activity, whatever, it's got unique URL. If you hit this URL, you copy and paste this URL, you hit it, it will display the same record. You hit URL something something slash edit, contact slash edit ASPX, it creates a new contact. So they well defined. So the format is defined and they're not random. So it's kind of not quite RESTful, but very, very similar in the sense that you can build unique URL to do exactly what you want, to access the record that you want. So that's what I'm doing here. Given a lead ID or donation ID, I just built URL. And then what I do, send notification. What it does is authentication token. It builds using these consumer keys. It's supposed to keep secret, so don't look. Now this is basically your Twitter protection. CRM Shout account trusts my developer's keys. So these 4 keys contains CRM Shout account information, Twitter account information, as well as my application information. These 2 together, because CRM Shout trusts the application. Remember, there is no concept of application tweeting. So application can tweet on behalf of someone who trusts this application. So my application, CRM Shout account, trusts this application to tweet on their behalf. That's what it does. And what it does is very simple. It's a wrapper, one of the public wrappers. I'm saying Twitter response, give me a follower's IDs. So all my followers of that account, right, just enumerate them. For each follower, just send a message. And I don't even need to retrieve names of the followers. I don't care. Just IDs will do, you know. And that's it. So it's basically one, given all the security tokens. So create token, it's 1, 2, 3, well, 4 lines of code, effectively, right? To broadcast. Well, let's see how it works. If okay, it's starting. It's still starting. "27 seconds till next refresh." How do you refresh? Like that. This is my production. The one thing you can do in Azure, when you have 2 instances, you can run effectively each deployment can have production and staging. So you have production running, then you have your package, you upload it to staging, then you can do a swap. And that is much faster than redeploying the whole lot. So take your time deploying into staging, then swap. If it doesn't work, swap back. Swapping takes about a couple minutes, so it's reasonably fast. All we have to do is to wait till it initializes. Whilst it's doing that, okay, I'm running here. Oh, I don't want to uninstall any programs. So I registered a domain name, so we're hitting a public website. If it's not running, it's not going to hit it yet. So let's see. It's preparing notes. Whilst it's doing that, I'll talk about resources. So if you want to get started with CRM, how many of you actually work for partners? Microsoft partners? Hey, all guys. In stealth mode. Anyway, CRM 2011, you can subscribe 30 days, trial. Just go, CRM Online, provision, SDK, free download, knock yourself out. Plenty of tons of codes, tons of samples, including the Service Bus integration, everything you need to know. Link samples, plenty of link samples. There is a CRM 2011 training kit, developers training kit. It's a huge, it includes videos, sample codes against portal code, modifications, exercises, you name it. There is Windows Azure training kit. If you want to get into it, do yourself a favor, download. And there are good white papers. There's just a samples. Building business applications with CRM 2011. That's basically a white paper about XRM architecture. How to use CRM to build XRM applications, right? And also there are white papers comparing XRM and force.com. There's plenty of performance white papers, configurations, you name it. It's tons and tons downloads. There are more resources. That's TechEd related resources. Learning, there's plenty of online learning. If any of you is interested, send me email crm@georged.id.au. I'll get you access to online learning for CRM. That's not a problem. TechNet, MSDN. We started CRM Wiki on TechNet. It came up. So if you're interested, crmwiki.net. This is our latest initiative we started. It goes to TechNet. It's a wiki, heaps and heaps of information. It's basically lots of people contributing, updating about CRM 4, about CRM 2011, and so forth, so forth. So there's plenty of information. So if you want to get your feet wet, be my guest. Okay, so we should be up and running. Yep, we're already in production. He's nutritious, first name, Adam Kogan, who's missing, so we'll register as a donor on his behalf. Okay, and now remember this one hits the website, that hits CRM Online, that hits the Azure web point through the service endpoint, that hits our web worker role as a listener, that hits the Twitter to broadcast. And if my calculations are correct, and I didn't screw up somewhere, we should, new lead Adam Kogan. And he is a URL. Let's see where we're getting. Click. Here you go. Okay, so we were just hitting our CRM instance. Now, the other thing we can do is, if someone, let's imagine if we manage our subscriptions through the website. We extended the website, so we accept credit cards online. And someone anonymously, say, donated money for $2, and it's today. Okay. Let's wait. Remember, I registered the second point on donation record. I don't know, how often does it refresh, if it refreshes? I don't know, is it push? Here's another lead I created earlier. Oh, here you go. I go in, and here's my donation. So someone donated through the website. Here you go. So it's, in the end, it sort of came together, bar your firewall. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Before you go, I've got a task for you. Go to tv.ssw.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You'll be informed of all upcoming videos. In addition, if you're super keen, I'm all about inspecting and adapting. So send me an email or send me a tweet @Adam Kogan. Cheers.